John, why don't you ask your question?
Sure. I just, Larry, my concern after reading through some of this, the Pontiac situation with the underlying real estate, I believe it was, that's one of Gray's funds, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So what's the issue with the underlying asset?
Today, there's no issue, but if you recall, we developed the fund so that $1 it can invest in real estate, hedge funds, private equity, and other alternatives, all right? One of those is a real estate company. And while we both like to say that our auditors are a really great group and the underlying real estate company is a really great group, apparently when they both did their audits initially, or their initial reviews, I should say, that particular fund's auditor, which is Deloitte, gave them, I'm not sure I use the right word, non-qualified. In other words, everything was great. Our auditors, however, took it to a higher standard, and by the way, there's McClattery, they're here in Chicago, is the group that we work with, issued a qualified opinion. So we suggested that they get together and figure it out, but since then they have, and that's all been resolved. It was a matter of how they were reporting the valuation on the underlying properties.
So Pontiac doesn't have any issues with it, and their auditor is Deloitte, and they're satisfied?
Well, no, the auditor for the underlying real estate fund is Deloitte.
Okay.
Our auditor is McClattery, which is again here, and the fund of Pontiac and us, Gray Company, asked those two to get together and figure out what was the difference and how they came up with their valuation process.
So it wasn't Pontiac's auditor that had the issue, it was the real estate?
It was the, I know his name, I'm trying to get this position, John Naglick, there, who was appointed by the emergency financial manager of the governor's office, had issue with our auditor issuing non-qualified, issuing qualified. So it's my understanding that it's already resolved. I'll get a letter to Sue this afternoon.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sprapolis?
Thank you. Mr. Gray, could you address the issue of, it's my understanding in our agreement with Gray that the trustees are to be notified within 5 days of any investigations, and that the investigation by the SEC began in June of this year, but our agency didn't hear about anything from you until September?
Yes.
Could you address that issue, please?
Sure. It's plain and simple, absolute oversight mistake on our part. When this happened back in June, we had our compliance team go through all of the contracts to make sure we were in compliance, and I'm hugely apologetic and sorry to say that they missed that clause in yours. So the other clients were notified to have that clause in, you were not, and so we are guilty as charged on that.
And then what brought the fact that it hadn't been, that we hadn't heard of it?
Honestly, I think Sue identified it.
It was actually a question from Joe Burns.
And asked the question.
So it was our agency that
Yeah,
found it?
we would have still missed it,
Okay.
honestly.
Mr. Rose?
Larry, your firm's resignation from the Atlanta Fund, how does it affect Crane Company's ability as a going concern?
Oh, not at all. Well, let's look at it from a operational standpoint. We've been here on Atlanta General since 1996. We, I believe, got the Atlanta firefighters around the same time. Police officers, I believe, we've been with now 3 years. And so, to be honest with you, if this were 1996 or 1997, I'd be critically concerned because the Atlanta General is a $1 billion fund, and the revenues were very much would have impacted our company. But at this stage of where we are as an organization, it does not. That's the first thing. Second thing, I suppose it's a matter of public record, but if you look at the dual role that we had been performing there, and you look at the revenues that we were receiving as a consultant, the revenues that we're receiving as an asset manager are higher than that of the consultant. So net, we're actually positive relative to where we were a year ago in that relationship. So there's been no loss of revenue to the firm as a result of our resignation.
And as of now, you're continuing as an asset manager with them?
No. I believe you received a letter as well, but for those organizations such as yours, well, not such as yours, I apologize, such as Atlanta, our clients there, our clients in Michigan, New Haven, there was a couple of others that are private or non-public, I should say. When we agreed to support them in this regard, everything was fine. The documents, it was fully disclosed. In fact, I brought one of the presentations for you to see how it was disclosed. It was rather black and white. all that's going on, I would say, brought to the attention by a trustee, which is perfectly fair. We sent a letter to you and to all of our clients saying, if we're serving you in this dual capacity and you are uncomfortable with that dual capacity, we will resign one side or the other. And so, in this case, we resigned as consultant on Atlanta General, and then last week we formally resigned as consultant on Atlanta firefighters and Atlanta police officers. Both of those funds had very positive, three funds had very positive things to say about us as consultant. But again, they went from a position of from being comfortable with the dual role to a position of not being comfortable with the dual role for assorted reasons. But it was in the mayor's best, I think the mayor felt in the best interest to separate those duties and responsibilities back out. So we resigned as consultant.
And how did that affect your consulting revenue?
Well, again, as a whole firm, if I replace $100,000 of revenue with $200,000 of revenue, while it's one less account we have to consult on, the net revenue amount to the firm is higher. If that makes sense. Doesn't make sense?
No.
Okay. Okay, so let's say that if I,
Your question or your statement assumed that you were gaining the alternative investment as a client, so that there would be a gain of 200 when you lost 100. But I think the trustee's question goes to what happens to the company when you've lost $100,000 of hypothetical income, and how does it impact the ability when you've had 3 clients that have resigned to continue your consulting business?
okay.
Exactly.
Okay, I apologize then. When we did this, the contemplation was for those clients who we had the role, we kind of fully expected at some point, this isn't a cozy place to be. I mean, they must have had to sign 4 different conflict of interest pages, okay? And so it's all been built into our model. There is absolutely no negative impact on the organization from, say, a year ago to now, even with these resignations. I want to go ahead and tell you, though, that this same letter that we sent to you, I am going to visit with all of the clients who were in that dual role and sitting down with them. And it's, let's say, our counsel is, if you really don't, if you're not comfortable with this anymore, let's not do both sides. So we've run the models on the consulting side, the financial models, that is, and the organization, the company as a whole is going to just fine. It's not negatively impacted to any degree that would cause us to have to make any adjustments.
1 second.
To that answer, are you, is there an active drive to have Grain Company become more of a manager, less of a consultant?
No, I love consulting. My heart is there. I had a long talk in Southfield, Michigan last night, the same discussion. So, I don't want to call it one-stop shopping, but over the years, starting with MWRD, Metro Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, I believe back in '93, they asked, this is how all this started. They asked us to take on the role of being a manager-managers. In other words, all the work that you see Ivory does, instead of you selecting and interviewing the managers, we actually do it for them, and we still do it. And they're very happy with that role, and it's fine. But I think if you sit among myself, Ivory, and the other members of the consulting team, we really love consulting. We did take on these roles to support our clients. Many of our clients, I don't know if you've had the experience here, I apologize, but let's say they used to have a staff of 10 people, now they have a staff of 3 people, and they're asking us to do more and more things. So there's a new name in the industry called outsourced CIO, or outsourced Chief Investment Officer, and we actually have a couple of clients where we do absolutely everything for them. We write all the memos, we do wire check, we do everything. So while the industry is going there, and we've accommodated some of our clients in that regard, our hearts are really in consulting, and we're going to continue to do that.
Have you had any layoffs lately?
Yes. So a lot of it surrounds the asset management part, which gets back to sitting down and saying, what is it we really, really want to do? So we have eliminated, well, first of all, we eliminated marketing because the marketing was surrounding the whole asset management piece. And if you know anything about marketing, the flights, the wine, the flights, dinner, wine and dining, which you don't do, but trust me, a lot of the world does. We eliminated those positions immediately.
How many?
So that was 6 positions in marketing, okay? And then we looked at the individual products. And so, again, getting back to your question, what do we really want to be? We don't want to necessarily try to be everything to all people. So So there are a couple of other sleeves within the firm, index product that has nothing in it, but we did a lift out of the team. We're most likely gonna sit down with those people and say, that this isn't really what we want to do, so from that side. But on the consulting side, there's been no changes whatsoever.
Mr. Burns, do you have something?
I did. Would you be kind enough, Larry, to provide the trustees with a copy of the letters that were sent to the other clients that you overlooked sending to us, so that we can see the date of the letters that went out to your other clients regarding the SEC investigation?
Sure, she'll have that before the end of the day.
And could you also describe for us how many dual role relationships you do have, where you're both a consultant and running an alternative investment product?
Alternative investment product?
Well, how many dual roles do you have at any time?
Well, we have alternatives and then we have traditional. So if I describe the MWRD, Metropolitan Rapid Transit Authority for a moment, those are managers, but they are or multi-fund, but they're traditional managers. They're small cap and all cap. So that's traditional. And then there's the alternatives. So on the alternative side, we have Core Alternatives 1, which has four clients in it, and Core Alternatives 2 has 4 clients in it, but that's alternatives.
And all 8 of those also use Gray & Company as a consultant?
Yes. Can I be specific and say one uses us as a outsourced CIO, meaning we do absolutely everything for them, and the other 7, they're consulting clients.
And on the traditional side, to fund the funds?
Wow. Now, there's overlap here, okay? So. Joe, I'll confirm, but I want to say there are 6, and they're largely the same names. In fact, they're all the same names.
It might be helpful if you could provide a chart that
Sure.
would show which clients have these dual roles, so that the trustee can make an assessment about what risk there is that any portion of the dual role will be terminated by a client, and thereby have an impact on Gray & Company or Gray Co.
So to further answer your question, Mr. Vice Clarity, so there's the corporate umbrella, right, of the Gray Company. We have consulting side, and then there's the asset management side. And so again, started by our dear client, Metropolitan Rapid Transit Authority, we launched that managers, I think it was in 1999. So the performance was very good. They asked us to do another job for them very similarly, where we would have done all of our work, and they said, I really want to interview these managers. You pick them, you figure it out, and just bring us the selected group of managers in one tidy little. And so that launched our small cap manager product. In fact, they're the only client in it. So we didn't go out to do an active marketing job on that. We satisfied the request and the needs of that specific client. Over the years, other clients have done conferences and whatever, and they asked about outsourced CIO, or are you willing to take on more duties and responsibilities as they were paring down their staffs, public funds or Harley's or whatever. And we said, sure. And a lot of it was initially just writing memos that we would send, cut and paste, put it on the letterhead. That's how benign it started, and then we just grew that role. So for some of our clients, it's worked very, very well. At some point, though, you look up and you say, well, is this really what we want as a company? And then the fund is asking the same questions, which really came about as a complaint of the trustee in Atlanta. So that kind of started the dialogue, quite frankly. And then we sat down as a company and said, what do we really want to be when we grow up? And we love consulting, so I want to be absolutely clear about that. And we felt that if we want to be transparent and stick to our knitting, we want to send all of those clients letters. In fact, we send it to everyone just to be transparent. And so several of the clients said, no, in fact, we want to give you more duties and more responsibility, and we're going to pay you more to do it. Clearly, there's some that you read about the paper and said, we don't like this rule, and we're choosing which side of that.
And if I understood correctly, they chose to have you run on the asset side, and you resigned as a consultant.
You know, it was a non-decision, to be clear, private equity, which you don't have it in here, but once you put that together, it's a lockup for about 10 years. So if I'm your consultant and I have this 10-year lockup product, and you say, Larry, I don't want you to do both roles, I'm kind of stuck with the 10-year lockup role. I say stuck with, it's not a bad thing, but I can't then serve as your consultant if I'm locked into this other assignment for 10 years.
And would that same situation be true in the other relationships that are dual, either the 8 that are in the alternative or the 6 that have some overlap who are in a traditional, so that they too are in, some of them are going to be in lockup situations.
All the alternatives are locked up for 10 years, yes. So we're going client by client, and even those that are in it or not in it, even those that have been discussing with us that they want us to take on more roles, I've been able to sit down with them as of yesterday in 2 separate cities and say, look, I know we've talked about this, but if you really see where the problem, the bump in the road comes down here, is this really where we want to start off? And so we backed off those discussions, and we're continuing to back off those discussions there. On the ones that are already in products, both liquid, traditional, and long-term lockup, we're saying, what would you really like us to do? And if they want us to, and the ones that are only, I think there's only one, just traditional, just 3-day liquidity, we can easily sell that, give it directly to the managers or whatever. You're probably familiar with manager programs. The lockups though, again, because we're tethered to that for 10 years, we've had to suggest to the client, we'll help you with an orderly transition, but we need to resign as a consultant to lock into this order. That you wanted, that you agreed, that you signed all the disclosures.
Those are the resignations in the alignment funds.
Those are the Atlantis and.
Any other resignations as a consultant?
I'm considering, yes, 3 more, because, again, when you're sitting down with the clients and consultant, advisor, whatever, we're still a fiduciary, and we want to do the best job that we can for them. So if there's some vigorous debate at a table like this, and about Ivory, but we're kind of a warm and fuzzy setting where everybody gets along, yeah. And so I don't like that bit of dissension. There's 2 trustees who hate this, but 5 who love it, yeah, we could win in a vote, but that's not the environment that we want to operate in. So there are right now 3 others that I'm going to talk to and submit our resignations for their consideration. But I want to be on record to say that we see what's happening here, and we don't want to be in that kind of position with you as our client. And many of these relationships go back. I mean, Joe was 1996, and then firefighters, I believe, was 1997. Police officers just 3 years ago. So they've all said very kind things about us. I think we're going to, obviously, we're going to maintain a professional relationship because we'll still see them in the context of the core alts fund, the alternatives fund. But we don't want to be having created that kind of discord for our clients. So there are 3 others that I'm going to talk to very long-winded answers to your question.
George?
Larry, these 3 clients that you're be speaking to, you're serving a dual role with these 3 clients? Both consultant and money management?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
core
Yes.
fund?
Yes.
Now, what is the primary source or the primary source of revenue for your firm? Is it the consulting side or is it asset management?
Today's probably asset management by a little bit. Because, I mean, you look at the difference in the margins or the basis point fees between consulting and asset management, it's hugely different.
And where do you see the core strategy going?
Our core competency is consulting. And so the idea was to jettison a bad word, but rethink some of these other things that we're doing, either at client request or in our own vision, 5 years ago. And to sit down like we've done and said, we really love consulting. I think you've heard us say, if we weren't doing this, we'd teach at a local college or university. So we're going to stick to our knitting on that. So the vision is to continue the consulting practice. Candidly, I think in the consulting side, maybe 85% is public funds. And I've served on several foundation endowment boards, when included Georgia State University, boards here, a couple of boards here in Chicago even. But in that notion, George, when I look at public funds and what we bring to the table, I think it's vitally important that these public funds have people like Ivory and like Larry and like other members of our team to support them. Some of the corporate plans, and this is no smack against anybody, but some of the foundation and endowment plans and corporate plans that I've sat on, you look around the table and there's 3 investment professionals on this side, there's an actuary, an auditor, SEC type attorney. So they have a different board constitution and they make decisions differently. In the context of largely Taft-Hartley's and public funds, we feel that that's kind of our calling. I'll put it that way.
Commissioner Sprockles?
Mr. Gray, could you speak to the failure of Gray to provide the board with notice of Mr. Clark's lawsuit?
Yes, we talked about that last meeting.
Could you address it
and
again,
It was
please?
not, our counselors, if you want to call it that, so that's a combination of actuarial, I'm sorry, not actuarial, I apologize, compliance consulting, said that it did not, it wasn't required for us to disclose in our ADB. And so, since it wasn't required for you to disclose in our ADB, we did not disclose it to any of our clients. So that was not an oversight, that was a deliberate sit down with the professionals that we engaged and made that decision. And it was in the context that it was frivolous. He wasn't a true client of the firm. And in the context of.
You paid out $1 million, didn't you, in that suit?
Yes, we had this discussion.
That doesn't
last
sound
meeting.
frivolous to me.
Well, it's very frivolous if the firm, your law firm's gonna, and they told you they're gonna charge you $1.5 million, I'm sorry, they're gonna charge you $1.5 million to just get you to court that day. So we made a business decision. But this gentleman, even the mediator that day, said that this is the biggest chunk of malarkey he had ever seen. 98% of it is totally bogus, but, and again,
But the 2% cost you $1 million.
I'm sorry,
The 2% cost you $1 million.
2%.
You said 98% was bogus, but 2%
Oh, yeah,
cost you $1
yeah,
million.
yeah. I mean, he sued for a lot more. It was a crazy number. Good, bad, or indifferent, we think it's still a very good thing that we just settled that and went about our business. We were told by all our firms, King and Spalding, that was a better thing to do.
And you
So again,
didn't think as a fiduciary it was your duty to let the board know about that lawsuit?
In the context of how this lawsuit was brought to us, no. It wasn't really about Gray and Company, it was about Larry Gray and having an advisor friend over some investments, and, no, not at all. And if we were in closed session, I could give you a lot more detail, but, the detail would clearly spell out that, no, this was not a Gray and Company issue, this was not anything that needed to be reported to our clients. I mean, on hindsight, fine, but certainly at the time, we just wanted him and it to go away.
And the tax lien?
We talked about that last meeting as well.
And I'm asking you again this.
Okay, what's your question? I'm sorry.
Could you speak to that as to why that wasn't disclosed?
Same reason. Our advisors said that that was a matter that did not raise to the level or fiduciary responsibility in what we do for our clients. It was a matter of a client, a funder, a backer of our company who died, and we found ourselves in pretty dire straits. So we took some bad advice, in fact, it was stupid advice. But we went to the IRS for the letters that they had sent us candidly. We now sat with them and came to a resolution of that many years ago.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that took the bad advice.
Uh,
Took bad
tax
advice from
advice.
whom?
Our then tax person.
You weren't characterizing the opinion to not disclose it as bad advice, but rather the underlying tax advice.
Well, the underlying tax advice, A, was bad, yes. And then B, our question really was, why did we disclose it? And when we sat down with our advisors at the time, our compliance advisors, et cetera, they said that this is not a matter that has to be under ADB, and it's not something you run around with the town talking about. So,
Compliance advisors were external.
external, yes.
Did they provide you that opinion in writing?
I believe so. We certainly have it in writing now.
Could we ask that you would provide us copies of the advice that you received from King and Spalding with regard to the two issues of filing on the ADB?
That's not our, so these are separate companies, so King and Spalding defended us in the Clark matter.
Okay.
Only.
Who gave you the advice on the tax lien?
That's another company, and I will get that letter over to you this afternoon. It's already been written, so for, on a requested basis, we're sending it out to funds as usual.
Larry, how was the tax lien discovered? Did IRS do an audit or what?
How was it discovered by the funds or
Who,
by?
who discovered? Did you bring it to IRS's attention and try to settle, or did they bring it to your attention to an audit, or how did it come about?
Oh, they brought it to my attention many years ago.
IRS.
The IRS, did. Not the lien though, the tax matter that
Yes.
these periods hadn't been paid in full. Not paid at all, but not paid in full. And so they sought a resolution to that. We went down, had a meeting with them, and again, I mentioned last meeting that people were very gracious. Again, small business, made a bad decision, And they were extremely supportive. In fact, they waived, I want to say 100%, but I think it was closer to 95% of all the penalties and interest on that. Again, despite what some people might think about the IRS, they were very, very supportive.
But they started the process.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you miss,
Okay.
if you don't pay, you get this
Okay.
tiny little computer-generated letter in the mail. But we took it upon ourselves to go down and sit down with them, and they were very, very helpful.
You have something? So the tax lien was the direct result, the IRS put the lien on it?
Yes.
For the, okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Any other questions? Nada. Joe, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Okay,
So I have 3 deliverables, and we will have all of those to you by,
Was it 4?
okay, then I will get with you and figure out what the one that I'm missing is.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, who do we have first, George?
Excellent.
Okay, we'll bring in Exodus. You know, Mary, I don't know, I'm sorry, off the rec for a second. I don't know if that's gonna work with them. Shiny. We could just turn that off, it's gonna be right in their eye. And if you guys wanna, you don't have to sit crammed up in the corner of the room. We'll turn it.
One of the 2 things I didn't print out.
Okay, next we'll hear from Exodus. I'm sorry, could you state your name for the record?
My name-
Sorry for the delay too.
No problem. My name is Nadia Separado. It's actually, if you're looking for ways to spell it, on the last page of the report. So I know you